Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, welcome back for episode 42 of the Missing Links Golf Show. I'm Steve Hinks, joined by Andy Walker once again. And Andy Walker, special edition Olympic episode we have today. How good is that?
Yeah, well, obviously once every 4 years, the Olympics comes around, and it's interesting. I've never really thought golf belonged in the Olympics. I have to say my viewpoint's always been that the Olympics should be the pinnacle of the sport, and obviously golf, the pinnacle of golf are the four majors each year. However, the Olympics I think is coming into its own. I know that in reading some of the articles about what the players have said and how they view the Olympics and the gold medal, I'm coming around to the idea of golf having its rightful place in the Olympics. I'm not sure about the format. I don't know whether stroke play is the right format. I would like to maybe see like a 36 hole stroke play going into match play type of event. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, look, I think in its current format, it's also pretty good.
Well, certainly hit the ground running with opening remarks, Andy Walker, because that is very much the first item for discussion. Really, I mean, we did kind of allude at the end of the last episode that we were going to do a bit of a review of the Olympic performance for golf at the Olympics, and that is what we intend to do. There is absolutely, I think that conversation is the starting point, is whether or not golf is in fact an Olympic sport. I've been mulling that over the last couple of weeks.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I've also had a few conversations with some of the pilgrims about this as well.
Yep.
And there's some opinions that have been bandied around. So I wouldn't mind sharing them with you as well, Andy Walker, see what you think. A number of people have said the same thing, and I agree wholeheartedly that an Olympic sport should be the pinnacle of, an Olympic event should be the pinnacle of that sport, and that should be a threshold.
But I mean, that then puts out basketball, it puts out tennis, it puts out soccer, it puts out, well, I don't know.
We should say football for our English and European friends.
You know, even the rugby sevens, there's the rugby sevens World Cup, isn't there? So I don't know.
I don't know. I think rugby sevens, I feel like the Olympics potentially is the pinnacle for that sport now. Yeah, football/soccer, definitly not for me on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got their own World Cup every 4 years. Right. So, you know.
That's right. It's a bit like...
We did the same as like rugby league and rugby union, where they've got their own World Cups. And, the Olympics, it's every 4 years, but it's not really the pinnacle of the sport. Never going to be.
No, it's not going to be. Whereas when you look at your traditional sports like athletics and swimming and some of those sorts of things, very much it's the pinnacle. Winning Olympic gold is really what 100%. That's all about. So, and that's really what, what the Olympics has been based on for many, many years. I think golf is an interesting one because, sure, you say the majors are the pinnacle of the sport. Hard to argue, I think, with that point. However, like you, I think listening to some of the commentary that's come out in the last few days and people talking about both the Olympics and the Ryder Cup being the only two events where athletes are not paid to compete.
Yeah.
There might be a certain degree of prize money in different countries, but they're not paid by the organisers of the event to compete in that event. So that's put a different light on it, and I think people are viewing it in a slightly different way. I also think that it being every 4 years does put it slightly different to the other majors. Representing your country makes it a little bit
that's
unique.
The other part of it as well is that in the majors, really you're representing yourself. You're not really representing your country. Whereas definitely in the Olympics you are. And that's why sort of, we've broached it a couple of times about expanding that Ryder Cup slash President's Cup type of format, which is what Live Golf is trying
Mm.
to do to a certain point, to make it sort of more of a region based team sport. And I think that's definitely, to get that tribal team sport. And certainly I think from a country standpoint, having an opportunity to represent your country, I think is a really, really good thing.
Oh, I 100% agree with all of that. I really like it. Um, but to the point, should have been an Olympic sport. I feel like one of the reasons why the Olympics has not been such a big deal for golf has been a lack of history.
Mm.
So golf, of course, was in the Olympics way back when, in the very first Olympics, I think back in
Yep.
1900 or 1904 or whenever the modern, or 1896, actually, it might have been
1896 at Athens.
1896, yeah.
Yeah.
It was there then, and it had a long vacation, and it came back in, was it Rio? That was the first reintroduction
I think so. Yeah.
three Olympics ago. Um, but I feel like as it goes for a little bit longer and spans players' full careers, and we get into the next generation of professionals that are coming up playing the game at the top level, where golf is in the Olympics and has a degree of history, I think that might
Mm.
help,
Yeah.
and that might make it more
And
important.
that's where I think perhaps a different format, a match play format, is a good way to go for the Olympics, because
Mm,
effectively, the four majors are stroke play, right?
mm,
And there's,
mm.
apart from the team sport of like your Ryder Cups and your President's Cups, there's no real match play as such in golf. There's no world match play championships. So to have the Olympics as a match play event, certainly for the last part of year, have your 36 hole qualifying, because it would be difficult to have match play all the way through. It would just end up being a very, very long event. But
Yes.
have a 36 hole qualifying, and then maybe the top 32, play match play over the last, 2 or 3 days. I
Mm.
think that, and have the Olympics as effectively the match play championships. I think that would sort of bring a different element to it, and bring a fair bit of excitement, I think, to the event.
Well, I think you might be onto something. Guess what? Pros and cons. It makes it a bit different, makes it a bit interesting, something for people to look forward to in a different way. They're all good things. Cons to it, potentially it becomes something then that eliminates the chance for the weekend comeback, for the person that's, say, outside that top 32, but then burns it up on the last two rounds, and at the moment could potentially make a comeback and get into the medal. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't mind the idea though. I think a little bit different is fun.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, on the point of should it be an Olympic sport, I kind of now lean towards I feel like it should be an Olympic sport. There was a couple of other criteria that some of the pilgrims had suggested as well about what should or should not be an Olympic sport. Andy Walker, interested in your take on this. Another one, and this is something that I've sort of thought about as well over time, is that for a sport to be in the Olympics, it should be a sport to begin
Not an
with,
activity.
not an activity or a pastime.
Yeah.
And the line that has been drawn on that, which is not necessarily the dictionary definition, okay, this is a Missing Links Golf Show definition, is that a sport should be able to be won and won outright, without the need for judging or subjective determination of a winner. I.e., 100-meter running, you beat the other guys, you win. Swimming, same deal. You touch the wall first, you win. Golf, you shoot the lowest score, you win. Um, Diving, you dive into the pool. The judges then deliberate and come
Mm.
up with a conversation and put a score up. You don't. Well, how do you know? I mean, not
Yeah.
not cast any
Look,
aspersions at the judges, but it's a third
look,
party.
that then puts out gymnastics.
It does.
That then puts out boxing.
It does.
Uh,
Well, boxing could continue provided that it is only decided by knockout or until one of the competitors gives up,
so
throws in the towel.
maybe after 43 seconds in the first round.
Could be, or it could be after 43 rounds. Who knows? Like it's
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So, but it does call into question a lot of sports. Surfing would be out. And one that I know that would really upset you greatly, Andy Walker, that would not survive another Olympic rotation would be breakdancing.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun this year, wasn't it?
Mm, it's fantastic sport, breakdancing. I
But
mean,
then, I mean, all these new sports. I mean, you've got skateboarding, you've got BMX, you've got a lot of those new sort of, or I don't know if you'd call them hip sports, but certainly uh,
I think if
sports
you're
that
trying to be
are,
hip, you're probably not
le-
going to call them hip sports.
yeah, they're not mainstream.
No, no, and I have no problem with all of those sports being kicked out of the Olympics. To be perfectly honest,
Yeah, right.
so controversial as that may be, and to all the athletes that are out there competing in those wonderful sports, we wish you the very best. Not necessarily my cup of tea, um, and that's fine. We've all got our opinions.
So is
And
synchronized swimming your cup of tea?
no, no, it isn't.
Olympic sport?
I just really struggle with that. Like, no, I don't. Anyway, this is not my rules. These are some suggestions that have been thrown around by the pilgrims. But I think there's something in it. Another one which is an interesting suggestion, and this one came from a friend of the show, from Paul from Sydney. His idea was that the size of the medal that is given out should be representative of the size of the participation base globally for that particular sport.
Oh, okay.
So, a sport with a lot of people that get involved in it would have a really big medal, might be 2 meters in diameter. So say swimming, for example, lots of people get involved in swimming
Mm.
around the world. Lots of people love swimming, or even golf. A lot of people play golf. That's why the Miss England's
Well,
golf show is so
well,
successful.
football, soccer. I
Football,
mean,
yep,
most participated sport in the world.
yep, would have an enormous medal,
Mm.
massive medal.
Yeah, and given it's a
Whereas
team sport, there's
they could all share it. They could all
there's
carry it around, like all stand underneath it.
yeah, so not
Whereas
not not one medal per player.
just
It's
one
yeah,
massive,
one massive
enormous
medal.
medal.
Mm.
Whereas something like, you talk about synchronized swimming or artistic swimming, I think they call it now.
Oh, do they?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, or even, what else is a little bit obscure? I mean, potentially equestrian. I don't know how many people are into 3-day eventing. Maybe more than I think. Modern pentathlon might be a small one. For example, these guys might have minuscule little medals that are, potentially the size of a lapel pin that might go on your suit. So I think that'd be interesting as well.
So you don't feel as though the spirit of the Olympics should look at like the spirit of equality either?
Do you want equality or do you want equity, Andy Walker? That's a whole nother debate.
Well, yeah, and again, you know, you look at equality of process versus equality of outcome. I mean, that's
Mm.
I don't think that's the not what we're talking about in this episode. I don't think, because that could potentially span across multiple episodes.
Might. I think it might. So, I mean, anyway, there are a few interesting observations about the value of golf in the Olympics. Thank you
Mm.
to the Pilgrims for all of your views on that. Something something that is interesting about golf though in the Olympics is that it's the one event, I suppose the Ryder Cup is on this as well, but it's the one individual event is where players are playing for service rather than gain.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that they're playing for their country. They're representing others.
Mm.
They're pursuing victory for the good of others in their country rather than just the gain, the financial gain, or the world
Yeah.
rankings points gain, or any of those sorts of things. I think that puts a different spin on it too.
Mm. Yeah, I completely agree. Which is where I think that format, the representative part of it, really needs to be, I mean, not expanded too much so it sort of impedes on some, a golfer's ability to earn a living.
Mm,
Mind you, those players competing at that level, I think, already earn a pretty good living.
what they do.
But
Yeah.
I certainly think that, yeah, that bringing that representative element and that tribal element to be able to bring that into golf, I think is really good.
I like it. I do like it. I think it's got something to offer. Yeah, as we said, whether or not that's the format that it remains in, or whether or
Mm,
not it changes formats for future Olympics, time will tell.
mm.
Whether there is then also, I mean, I don't think you can do a teams event in the Olympics because that would just really favour the stronger countries and certainly the
Yeah,
US.
yep.
There's a lot of countries that wouldn't be able to field a competitive team. But whether or not there's something to be said for a mixed event, I don't know. Could be
Mm,
interesting. Wouldn't be
yep,
too bad
yep.
for the Aussies actually at that point. You could
Mm.
get Min Woo and Minji Lee as a team.
Yeah, yeah. Although Min Woo Lee didn't really do that well in this Olympics.
Minji didn't do great either.
No, but I think Min Woo Lee really his first round
His first round
5-0
was a shocker.
wasn't
I think he said it was an
ideal.
embarrassment. He was embarrassed
Yeah.
to play so poorly.
Well, his first hole, he put it into the water and made double on the first hole or something. So it
Yeah,
wasn't the
yeah,
best start.
yeah. I think that's true. So, shall we get down to business and have a little bit of a chat about what happened during
Mm,
the Olympics? And I suppose we've got the men's tournament and the ladies
yeah.
to unpack a little bit because there's plenty
Mm.
of action in both. Probably start with the men's. They played the men's first. It's a good place to kick off. Overall thoughts, Andy Walker?
Look, I think no surprise really with the winner. Uh, you know, Scotty Scheffler. I think he's been there or thereabouts in pretty much every event that he's played in this year.
Mm.
Um, Glad to see Tommy Fleetwood back up at the top of a big tournament. I'd
Yeah,
really
it was
like to
good.
see Tommy Fleetwood win a major at some stage. I think he's, especially ball striking, he is just
Mm.
an absolute machine when it comes to ball striking. So look, I think it was a good win. Hideki Matsuyama, I think again played really well throughout the week, and looks to be coming back into some form. He's shown some good form this year. And while sort of Xander Schauffele did sort of fade a little bit, wasn't sort of really there at the end, he still, I think, had a pretty good week. And again, I think it's a good year, and yeah, a good result for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think the lead story for the week that's got to be John Rahm.
Yeah, look, and I've I've had a bit of a think about this since that last round, and I don't know. Similar to Cam Smith, I think that John Rahm's lost an edge since he's gone to live.
I'd
And
agree.
while there's been, I mean, we know Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau this year have won majors. I don't know. Do you think the move to live has just taken an edge off some of the players? I mean, you look at, say, Mark Leishman, for instance. I mean, Mark Leishman, while like he's been heard of at live, like has done nothing anywhere else.
Mm.
Um, you look at Cam Smith, who seems to have just earned a lot of money and fallen off the radar. John Rahm, there was this big sort of hoo-ha about him going to live golf, and it was a sort of, changing the guard at the start of the year. But his golf, I find, has not really been that great this year. And then he gets into contention and obviously, wants to win in a big event like the Olympics. And, his last 9 holes were just terrible. Like they
Mm.
were atrocious.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, some of the guys have been able to make the transition and still be super competitive. You talked about
Mm,
Bryson, you talked about Brooks, and I don't think it's hurt them at all.
no.
Is it a personality thing with certain players? I totally think that Cam Smith has just gone into the comfort zone of
Mm,
I don't need to chase anything because I've now got so much money I can't spend in 5 lifetimes.
yeah. And I'm an open
And
champion, so I've hit the
yeah,
pinnacle of winning a major, and
yeah,
now just in cruise control.
that's what it looks like. I mean, obviously, we're not close mates with Cam, so it's difficult to know. Maybe we should get him on the show one day and just ask that question. Just say, Cam,
Mm,
what's happened? Where did it all
mm.
go wrong? That'd
Yeah,
be an
yeah,
interesting interview.
yeah.
Um,
The hunger,
I
the
feel
the
like there's
hunger
something
seems to
in
have
that.
gone. Yeah.
I don't think it's the same thing with Rambo. I This is my read just from the outside looking in, but I feel like with John Rahm, he just isn't happy.
Yeah.
And I think he's got an enormous amount of buyer's remorse over the decision that he made to go to live. I think
Mm.
it was one of those things that was probably too much money to say no to.
Yep.
And I think he probably felt like he would be able to make the switch and bring the sport back together potentially. He was going to be the one that might be the chosen one that was able to do it.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know. I also don't know what promises were made to him in the background as well, as to what it all might have been like that may not have come true. But
Mm.
he's seen just when you listen to a lot of the things that he says, it just seems to sort of indicate that he's not enjoying his golf
Yeah.
across at live as much as
Mm.
what he
Mm.
expected to.
I have to say though, if that is true that he saw him now, I don't know. I haven't really read too much about sort of what spurred Rambo's decision to go across. But if he made the decision because he thought that like he could bring the sports together and he was sort of the chosen one, so to speak, there's a reasonable amount of ego in that decision.
Well, I mean, don't you think that there is? It's yes, of course there is. And I think that it's true. I mean, I don't really know exactly what is going on with Rama, of course, because we haven't
Mm.
spoken to him. This is just from the outside looking in and sort of
Yep.
making a judgment. But he doesn't seem to be happy, and I think that has sort of that mental state of frustration that's bubbling under the surface has just made it difficult for him to be resilient in the tough
Mm.
rounds, and I
Yep.
don't think that it's helped him. And I feel like the Olympics was another example of that. Like we saw it throughout the majors, where his performances were below what you would expect,
Yep.
and he just seemed really really unhappy for a lot
Yeah,
of it. So
yeah, and he's been a bit angry as well. I mean, he seemed to have calmed down a fair bit in the couple of years leading up to the switch to live. But
mm,
yeah, whether it's the frustration of his own performance or whether it's something more, he just seems to be angry when he
he
plays.
does, he does. The other factor I think potentially that could be at play, with Rambo, he's got a really um, complicated swing. I guess it's the word that I'd use. It's obviously not a classical swing. It's
Mm.
nowhere near an Adam
It
Scott or anything
it's
like that.
it's unorthodox, but I don't think it's complicated.
What I mean by that, let me explain it. Maybe it's the wrong word.
Mm.
It's very fast. It's very whippy. We all are aware that his swing tempo is a lot faster than
Mm.
most.
Yep. Yep.
It's short, so it kind of needs to be. I feel like because of that, there is probably a bit more likelihood that things might go a little bit wrong. And when that timing's not 100% right, being that fast, whippy swing, that potentially that could lead to some poorer performances. Might
Mm.
be a little bit more difficult for him to be quite as consistent. I mean, he was amazing for a couple of years there, but then it just seems to have
Yep.
gone off the boil. We talked
Mm.
in a previous episode about how laid off he was at the top of his swing,
Yep.
and I don't remember seeing it that like quite that severe before. So there might be a few technical issues going on as well. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
but
It might be something he's deliberately doing. I don't know.
yeah, again, it might be something that yeah, because I mean, we know that he's got physically he's got some limitations,
Yeah,
and yeah, he may be working with a swing coach or even just off his own bat, sort of seen some changes that he wants to make. I mean, I don't know, I haven't really seen too many comparisons, and to be honest with you, this year I haven't really watched because I don't watch live. I haven't really watched too much of him, but yeah, certainly there's something going on that isn't quite sort of where it was sort of 12 months or so back. Because yeah, he did put in 2 or 3 years of, or maybe even more of really strong performances. But you also look at a lot of the over the last 10 years, the players that have just gone through 2 or 3 years of phenomenal performances and then dropped off. I mean, you look at Jordan Spieth, you
true,
look at what happened
true.
to McIlroy,
Yeah,
you look Tommy Fleetwood,
JT be
again,
another one.
JT. Yeah, these players they're on for a number of years to maintain that over a 5 year period, a 10 year period in the same way that say Tiger did.
Yeah.
And a lot of the greats, even you look at, say, Nick Faldo, for instance. I mean, Nick Faldo put in some strong performances, but then he sort of dropped a little bit and then came back and with a surge, sort of the mid to late 90s to win, well, certainly
Mm.
the 96 Masters he won. And yeah, I think that it's incredibly difficult to maintain your golf at that level for an extended period of time. So maybe this is also just one of those times
It could
with
be.
Rambo where his life is unsettled.
Yeah.
Uh,
It could
and
be.
and when if and when he sorts that out, that will then bring him back to playing good golf.
Look, it could, all of those things could be true. Yeah, it is interesting. You raise a good point talking about people and golf in particular, but I think it probably happens in other sports where you see someone that is at the absolute top for a year or two, and then they drift back into the pack,
Yeah.
and it's someone else's turn to dominate. Probably golf is a little bit more like that than many other sports, I guess, because in
Mm.
tennis you don't see so much of that. The
Well,
sort of the top guys
you did
tend to
used to
stay
it
up there,
until Federer, and then you had sort of Federer, Nadal, and
and Djokovic.
Djokovic.
But even
They
Sampras though, like
don't.
Sampras was dominant for his pretty much his entire career.
Yeah, but you look at Agassi. I mean, Agassi was dominant for a period of time, then went away and had a rethink as to. I think he even gave it away for maybe 12 months or so, and then came back, and that's when he had his dominant period. But he certainly wasn't dominant all the way through.
No, no, that's true. That's true. Um, but the point that I was going to make, or the question that I was going to ask, is why do you think that happens? Is that a mental thing of losing the desire, losing the hunger, or is it just simply a case of it is super difficult to stay at the top for so long that very few people can do it? What do you think?
I think there's also a third element as well, is that once you get to the top and win a major or grand slam, the your responsibilities and what's expected of you, and the time pressures that all of a sudden appear from media, from just about everyone wants a piece of you.
Mm,
I think that also has a massive impact on someone's life. And if you can't balance that out, if you can't say no to some of that, and there's a lot of people who can't say no, they want to please everyone.
mm,
You can't. I don't think you can please everyone and maintain a world class, regardless of what sport it is, a world class game and dominate for an extended period of time. I think that there are people who, and I think potentially that's sort of some of Cam Smith's problem as well, is that he's probably got all these pressures. I don't disagree with you in the fact that I think he's probably gone into cruise control a little bit, but I also think that there would be an enormous amount of time pressure on his in his life, and from media sponsors,
mm.
everyone really. So I think it's a combination of all of it. I think it's incredibly difficult, but I think B, yeah, certainly there's a time pressure and responsibility element to it as well.
Look, I think that is it's probably very true. I also feel like there's probably something in the desire to chase the goal versus
Mm,
once you've achieved the goal, trying to protect being at the top.
mm. Yeah, look, I agree with that, and yeah, certainly it's like trying to protect a lead, right? You can play phenomenally well all the way through a tournament, and you get to the last 9 holes, you're in the lead, and we've seen it many times. And I mean, Rory's probably one of those things, from the US Open, where he was probably going into protection mode, certainly in the last sort of 4 or 5 holes, where he started sort of missing some putts and all the rest. But you've seen it, whether it be Jordan Spieth, when he had his Masters breakdown. You've seen it so many times where a golfer's in their element all the way through and seems to be in perfect control until, whether it be the last round or the last 9 holes, or that they just seem to then want to protect their lead. And it's not just footy. Sorry, it's not just golf. It's also footy as well. I mean, I see it all, see it all the time in whether it be rugby league or rugby union or football, where a team will get out to a lead and then they'll completely change what they're doing, and they'll start playing defensive rather than their natural game.
I think that's true. And thank you for feeling as well. For those of you watching this episode on YouTube, you'll see that I just had an epic coughing fit. I did have the mute button down there, so it hasn't come through on the podcast. But great filibustering there, Andy Walker. Much appreciated. You're right though, with the protecting a lead thing. I do think there's something in that with people's careers as well as specific games. But it just reminded me of the Penrith Panthers versus the Parramatta Eels that was
Yeah.
on the TV this weekend. Ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen, for those of you that are not aware, Andy Walker is a Parramatta Eels fan in the National Rugby
long
League.
suffering Parramatta Eels.
Long
And if
suffering.
anyone doesn't know sort of rugby league, just Google the history of the Parramatta Eels, and
Yep.
there's actually a really good skit that I saw on Facebook, that someone did about the long suffering Parramatta Eels supporters, and it hit the nail right on the head.
Yep. So a couple of years ago, the Eels played the Penrith Panthers in the grand final. I was at that game, as a matter of fact. Took the young fella and the whole family, actually. We all went down to Sydney to watch the game. And look, to be honest, Penrith turned up, Parramatta did not. It was a
Mm,
flogging. So now, after that, and it is kind of a bit of a local derby, Parramatta v Penrith as well. And there's always a lot on the line, the battle for the West, as it's called. And anyway, was it Friday night or Saturday night? I think it was Friday night.
mm.
Parramatta 34-20 in the lead with 7 minutes remaining.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, you do not lose from there
Mm. Well, apparently you
unless
do.
unless you're the Parramatta Eels, who managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory very efficiently and went down
Mm.
36-34. So
Yep.
heartbreaking stuff, but a great anecdote. Thanks for raising that one, Andy Walker.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see how much
Yeah.
you're enjoying that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, loving it. Yeah.
but look,
Always
it is,
enjoying talking about the Parramatta Eels.
yeah, it is a thing. Is that at play for John Rahm? Hard to know. I'm not sure that he's sort of has gone into protection mode of his position. I just think he's frustrated. I don't think things have worked out for him in the last
Mm.
12 months. And I think he's just struggling to deal with it, to be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
is my
Yeah.
read.
To me, Rambo seems to be the type of bloke. He seems to be, very emotional and
Mm,
emotionally driven.
mm,
And if things aren't working in his life, I reckon he would find that incredibly difficult to separate what's going on in his life to what is going on the golf course. And I know that's, for most people, that's pretty difficult, but there are, I guess, players who can compartmentalize what's going on in their lives and just forget about that when they step onto the first tee.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Tiger was a good example of that for a lot of his
Yeah,
career, but then potentially fell
100%.
victim to that as well later in his career when personal
Yeah.
trouble started to really overtake. We haven't talked about Rory,
Yeah,
and
I do have Rory down because I want to know your thoughts on. I mean, he got close, so he
yeah,
didn't have the Rambo meltdown, but yeah, still another tournament that seems to have slid by the McIlroy career.
there was something that was very interesting that he talked about post round. So basically, Rory got himself into a good position. He was one shot off the lead with 4 holes to play.
Yeah,
Um, and then on 15, I think it was,
yeah.
he hit his approach shot short of the green into the
Mm,
water,
mm,
and I think made double. And
mm. He
that
he
kind of,
actually said, I listened to an interview, and he actually said that he thought he hit the shot really, really well. He hit the shot that he wanted. It's just that it came up short. Now, I guess from
yeah,
my perspective is, I mean, he's done that multiple times where he's come up well, it's quite a good analogy where he's come up
He's
short.
come up short.
So is it, do you think it was that he actually did hit the shot that he wanted to hit, or do you think that it was basically the situation and him just not being able to put the foot to the floor and finish the deal?
No, no. I actually think this is the same issue that cost him the US Open,
Mm.
and it's decision making on the golf
Yep.
course. Okay. It's a front flag, and there's water short of the green. So, what is the course setup trying to get you to do at this point? It's to go, it's asking you to go flag hunting
Yeah.
and to make an
Yep.
error
Mm.
and find the hazard.
Mm.
All right. So, smart course management says, I'm going to go over the flag and I'm going to make sure that I take the club that's going to get me 10, 15 feet past the flag. And then I'm going to try and make a putt. And if I make par, it's fine. If I drop
Mm.
a 15, 20 footer for birdie, then that's fantastic. But the one mistake I cannot make is to pull the club to get too aggressive and go for a front flag and drop it short in the water. And that's what he
Yep.
did. It's a decision making issue. And the same thing took place in the US Open, where he flew the green on the par three. And then when he took driver off the tee on 18, which he had not done all week because he was chasing, and it's decision making, I think, that's letting Rory down in the big moments. And I think, possibly friend of the show, John Sherman, could work some wonders with Rory just by helping him make those better decisions. Hmm. Because,
In saying that, though, if you look at coming back to 15, you look at Scotty Scheffler's shot into the green on 15, and he was flag hunting, but obviously he had the execution to be able to pull it off. Now his shot didn't make it by that much, and still ended up in there reasonably close for him to make a birdie.
yeah, and that could easily have not paid off.
Hmm.
I don't know what sort of specific number both of them were playing off and whether or not Scotty's sitting there saying, this is a perfect number for me to actually go at, and
Hmm.
confidence with ball striking, been hitting it really well. I'm going to give it a go. But for Rory to say that he's hit the club and he's hit the ball as he wanted to hit the ball and it's just come up short, that to me says that he was probably trying to overextend on the club choice that he had. Uh,
Hmm.
rather than, and so it's potentially between clubs. So it's really
Yep.
trying to step on one rather than sort of trying to hit one past the pin. So
Hmm.
maybe he didn't have a number that was as good for him as what Scotty had,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he made a poor
And
decision.
I also think, I mean, you look at Scotty Scheffler's form in being able to pull shots off under pressure, and Rory McIlroy's form with being able to pull shots
Yeah,
off under pressure. If it was effectively the same shot, you'd bank on Scotty Scheffler doing it every day of the week.
in round four of a big tournament, I want Scotty Scheffler hitting the shot for me, not Rory McIlroy. No question.
Yeah. Yep.
No question. But like as I say, I actually don't think it's so much an execution issue that's going on with him. I think it's a decision making issue.
Mm.
That's the view that I've sort of come to after seeing this happen a few times now.
Yeah, potentially. Look, I don't, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot going on with Rory at the moment. And I come and I've
And
done it multiple.
maybe that affects his decision making because there is a
Yeah.
lot going on in his head.
Well, I come back to the analogy in Paris I make to Greg Norman, in that there's got to be now a lot of demons that he's dealing with, and again, you know, you look at Greg Norman's decision making through major championships. We come back to, well, the recent sort of British Open Championship at Troon. I remember when Norman, Mark Calcavecchia, and Wayne Grady actually were in a playoff for the Open Championship in, what was it, 1989, I think it might have been. And Greg Norman they were in a four-hole playoff, I think it was, and Greg Norman was in front, and he took driver from the tee, hit it into the bunker, and that effectively ended his championship. And Mark Calcavecchia came through and won. But that should have been Greg Norman's
Mm.
tournament to win.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of comparisons there, and I think there are those decision making errors that he's making, but it's also because it's poor decision making, the execution is lacking as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's definitely there's definitely something going on, but the other thing as well is the effect that you have on the other players in the field. So, a lot of people talk about the Tiger effect when on a Sunday in a major, you'd hear the roars and you knew Tiger was coming.
Yep.
And it wasn't always that he would then overtake someone. It was more that they would actually come backwards because the pressure that they just expected Tiger was going to get them.
Yep.
I think Scotty Scheffler is having that impact on people that when he's
Mm.
making a surge on the leaderboard, people kind of almost crumble in the face of the pressure because the expectation is that Scotty's going to keep coming and keep coming and keep
Yep.
coming. I just don't think people feel that with Rory now. And I think when
No.
they see him making a Sunday
I,
charge, they kind of go, well, it's not going to happen anyway, so I don't really care.
I don't think really, apart from maybe at the start of his career, I don't think they've ever really felt that with Rory. I don't think Rory's ever had that sort of impact on certainly in a major championship. I don't think he's ever had an impact like that on a field. Whereas Tiger definitely, Scotty Scheffler definitely. I sort of feel maybe you talk about Xander Schauffele and what he's doing at the moment. If he keeps playing and keeps winning in the way that he's been winning, certainly in the PGA Championship and then in the Open, he's going to start having that impact as well because he when he puts the foot down or when he has put the foot down this year in major championships, he's been very strong and he's won really well.
That's true. Brooks Koepka is probably another one that has a bit of that impact on the field.
Mm,
Certainly with his record in majors when he's playing well, but not Rory. So
no,
yeah. Anyway,
no.
there's a bit there.
So here's
Um,
here's a question for you then, because we
mm,
spoke after the Open Championship during our Open review about who's had the better year, Scotty
mm,
Scheffler or Xander Schauffele. Now that Scotty Scheffler's bagged a gold medal, what are your thoughts? Who's had the better year? So Xander with PGA Championship and the
yeah,
Ocean and the Open Championship, or Scotty Scheffler with the Masters and the gold medal and the additional wins that he's had. I mean, there's the players in there as well.
mm. It's a really interesting question. I think you could go either way.
Yeah,
Um,
I reckon it's neck and neck.
it's very close. I think it depends on the criteria that you put on it, right? Like if you look at it and say, well, technically who's won more money, who's gained more world ranking points, it's Scotty. You know, so that's quite clear. But at the same time, when you go, really, the mark of greatness is winning majors, then it's Xander because he's
Mm.
got it 2-1. Had
But will
Xander,
history show the Olympic gold medal become that same level as the Grand Slams?
I think it will. Um, I do. I think that as Olympic golf, as we were talking right at the beginning of the show, as Olympic golf gets more history behind it, I think it will become seen in that sort of same light.
Yep.
And certainly, to that end, winning Ryder Cups is something which people really like to have on the resume, and that
Yeah.
and that's
Yep.
very well respected. Even though you don't win individually as a tournament, but having Ryder Cup wins and your Ryder Cup
Yep.
record is
Mm.
obviously another mark of the quality of the player.
Yep.
So I think it will. I feel like if Xander had won the gold at the Olympics, then Xander wins the year, no
Yep.
question.
Yep.
I think Scotty with a green jacket and a gold medal, along with the players and a number of other tournaments that he's won this year, I think Scotty shades it. I think it's
Mm.
close, but I think Scotty wins.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's
My
interesting.
view.
Mm.
Your
Mm.
thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's neck and neck. I think it's a dead heat. I've thought
Very
about
unlike you to sit on the fence, Andy Walker.
to be honest with you, if it was my record, I'd be just as happy with either, to be honest with you, because I
Oh,
think
you'd be stoked with either. But all right, here's a question. Here's another way of asking the question. Do you think either of them look at the other and go, in deep down in my heart of hearts, I wish I had your year?
No, I don't think either of them do because yeah, Xander's got more majors, but Scotty's got the gold medal, and that comes around once every 4 years. That's not a four, something happens 4 times a year. That's once every 4 years. And, I mean, yeah, Xander Schauffele's got a gold medal as well.
Yeah, but
So,
not this time around.
but maybe not this time around. I mean, it was pretty funny when he was asked. I think it was after the second round, where would the second
Yeah,
gold medal go? And
yeah,
or do you have an idea as to where the second gold medal would go? And he'd go, yeah, right next to my first.
yeah.
I thought
It
that
was
was
it was good.
pretty funny.
That's an epic
Um,
flex.
yeah.
So let,
But
let me ask the same question in a different way then.
you're trying to get an
Um,
answer, aren't you?
yeah, I am, and I'm going to get one. Pilgrim, strap yourselves in. We're not letting go of this. Um, in deep down in their heart of hearts, still deep down in the
Mm.
soul, in the depths of the soul,
In the cockles.
why not? Don't even know where that is. Anyway,
Not July, but I heard it somewhere and
yeah.
it sounds good.
Do you think either of them genuinely sit there and go, I reckon I'm comfortable. I've had the better year.
No, I don't
Okay.
think either of them. I honestly, I think
Or
it's a dead
another way
heat.
of asking that question,
I,
do
I,
you
I
think
think
either
it's
of
a,
them
I
go,
think it's a dead heat.
either of them would go, I wouldn't trade the year I've had for anything?
I reckon it's a dead heat.
See, I think the reaction of Scotty on the podium, he has never reacted that emotionally to any other
Mm.
win in his career.
Yeah.
The guy was crying like a baby.
Mm.
So to me, that kind of indicates a few things. One, this is something that he's really, really wanted.
Yeah.
And two, it meant so much to him that therefore it's probably a tournament that has meant a
Mm.
lot to everybody that was involved in it as
Yeah.
well. And even the comments that Rory had made about he didn't used to think much of golf in the Olympics, but now he's
Yeah.
absolutely on board.
Mm.
And John Rahm said
Mm.
similar things.
See,
Ironically, saying that John Rahm saying that playing for not money is
yeah.
so much better than playing for money. Anyway,
See,
I'll
I,
leave that
I,
there.
I reckon. So here, let me answer it this way. I reckon Scotty Scheffler probably goes, I'm glad I've had my year and I wouldn't trade it for yours. And Xander, given he's already won a gold medal, but he hadn't won a major before the start of the year, before the PGA Championship, I reckon Xander will turn around and go, well, that's great, but I'd prefer my year because they've both got two majors now. They've
Yeah,
both got gold medals.
yeah.
I don't think Scheffler would trade his year for Xander's, and I don't think Xander would trade his year for Scheffler's.
Mm,
That's what I reckon. And looking at it from both those angles, I personally, what it means to them individually, I think it's a dead heat.
I think you're probably right. I will say this much. I think Rory would look at either of them and say, I would happily trade my year for either of yours.
Yeah, I think that that goes without saying. But
Yeah.
yeah, Rory, I think, has had a year to forget when it comes to his emotional roller coaster.
Oh, it's
Look,
given us
don't
so
get me
much.
wrong, he's played some great golf, but
That's what's made it
yeah,
so much harder, I think, as well, though.
yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
he should have won majors
Mm,
this year, and
mm.
that's what's going to be really hard for him to come back from, I think. And look, I think he will contend again for another major. I Has he got too many demons to actually win a major? Look, I hope he does. I hope he
You
does
hope he
win
does
another.
have too many demons. Or...
That I was going to clarify that because I know that came out. I hope he does win another major, but I fear he's too many demons and he's in the same camp as what Greg Norman was, in certainly, in the early to mid 90s.
Hope and fear.
Mm.
There's
Yep.
not a lot of belief in
No,
any of that.
no.
I don't know. I just think I don't see that there's any reason why Rory can't win more majors. Like he has the game.
Oh, for sure.
I
Well,
agree
well,
with
he's
you.
got the
There's a lot of
physical game.
yeah. That's exactly what I mean. Because my next statement was going to be, I just don't think that he's got the decision making and the mentality at the moment to be able to
Mm,
do it. I think he makes too
yeah.
many errors,
Yep.
and they've been costly.
Mm,
And I think of all of the players on the tour at the moment. Previous episodes we talked a lot about the mental game and the conversations that we've had from the Full Swing series and seeing the Wyndham Clark, Joel Damon
yeah.
episode, which was fantastic. And if you haven't watched it, please get on Netflix and go and watch it. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
But I think of all the players on the PGA Tour and the Live Tour and in professional golf, Rory is probably the most in need of some genuine sports psychology
Yeah.
assistance.
Do you think he needs a hug?
Might need a hug, might need a slap in the face. I'm not suggesting that anyone goes out and does that to Rory. That's
No.
that's very very irresponsible. But I don't know. I think what I probably think he needs is to accept that he doesn't know everything and that he potentially could do things differently.
Yep.
I've never heard that kind of message coming from him with any of the losses that he's had this year. A lot of it's, sort of been defending his decisions and defending his actions and not so much ever
Mm,
really going out there and saying, actually, perhaps I could do things differently.
yep.
I think that
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Mm, yeah. Look, I don't disagree. And yeah, I hope we're wrong, but I
We haven't
can't
been
see
yet.
it. Yeah. I can't see it. I just can't see how he's going to get past just the mountain of stuff that he's got to get through in order to
Yeah.
win a major. Um, yeah, I'd love to see it. I like Rory. I like his game. I think that certainly think he's been hard done by over the last couple of years, but there's a lot of stuff there with him.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, what a triumph it would be though, if he did come through and win another major. Can you imagine the the emotion that would come out?
Oh, it'd be next level.
Mm,
It really would. I mean, we haven't talked about his caddy. Does he need to change up the bag? Because if the issue is decision making, has he got the right guy with him out there? Has he got someone that's just saying yes, yes, boss, I agree,
mm,
or someone that's genuinely challenging? And I mean, I know that conversation's been had in the media, and
yep.
and again, Rory's statements have been very much in support of his caddy and defensive about absolutely there's no problem. He's very
Yep.
good. I've won all these tournaments with him as well.
Yep.
So
And he has to be in order for that relationship to work. He has to be. He has to have his caddy's back in the same way that his caddy has to have his back. He's got to have his caddy's back. Otherwise, the partnership, as soon as he starts going, oh yeah, you make a good point. That's the end of the relationship.
yeah, I just wonder if they have that conversation though at all, because I don't get the sense that that is a relationship where there's an equal voice, and certainly where
Mm.
his caddy, whose name escapes me, but I know that they've been long-term mates. I just don't feel that that's a relationship necessarily where he's comfortable, confident, feels like he can challenge Rory's thinking and decision making in the big moments. But I feel like he
Yeah,
needs to.
I don't think there's probably many player caddy relationships where it's an equal voice either. I certainly, while you look at, say Tiger Woods and Steve Williams, I think Steve Williams probably would have had his say. But at the end of the day, I think Tiger would put his stamp on whatever Tiger wanted to do.
Oh, and you have to, because like the player's got to be the one that owns it and plays the shot and
Yep.
executes it. So if you're doing what someone else is telling you to do, then you're not going to be in the right mindset. But I guess
Mm.
I mean I would look at would someone like Steve Williams have let Rory make those club choices that he's made both in the US Open and in the Olympics that's led to him losing tournaments? I don't
Mm.
know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, he may have made different decisions had there been a different voice, but at the end of the day, he may have made other decisions and other execution errors as well that would have ended in the same result. So yeah, it's
Anything's
difficult to know.
possible.
Mm.
It is. However, we are at 55 minutes, Andy Walker.
Mm.
We have not touched on the women's tournament at
No,
all.
no, and look, I must admit, I only watched the highlights of the girls. Um, I watched a little bit of Hannah Green, but as soon as I mean Hannah Green was making a little bit of a charge, but then she made a double bogey, I think on
Yes,
it was
she
sort
did.
of was it 10? She made a double bogey, and that was pretty much the end of her tournament. But I sort of feel as though Lydia Ko was well in control throughout most of that event.
So good to see Lydia win that gold. I mean, she's
Yeah.
won a silver, she's won a bronze in previous two
Mm,
Olympics. She seems to be genuinely well liked on the
mm.
tour.
She
Has
she it's
a
been a little
fantastic
while since
career.
she's won like a
Well,
major
a
or
bit like what we've been talking about before. She'd been at the
yeah.
top for quite a while and drifted away and seems to be having a late career resurgence, which has
Mm.
been good to see. Um, one player I do want to mention, Andy Walker, and this is not necessarily one that you're going to go, oh, yeah, okay. Ursula Wikstrom from Finland.
Right.
Ursula finished, you go, what? What? Ursula finished well back in the field. But I played the Pro Am with Ursula in the New South Wales
Ah,
Women's
right.
Open
Yes. Yes.
a couple of years ago. And she is, without a doubt, one of the nicest people that you're ever going to meet and an incredible golfer. And it was really, really interesting to see someone that I have actually had a round of golf with out there running around in an Olympic competition. So
Mm, mm.
well done, Ursula. Shame you
Well, well, just looking at the
couldn't
results,
finish a bit higher up.
there was a girl from her fellow countrywoman uh, who withdrew from the event.
Mm,
She was at the time 28 over in round four and withdrew. Ursula then came 57th
mm.
at 19 over, which is third last.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a great performance from Urs, but lovely person. Wish her all the
Yeah, look,
best.
and
Friend of the
yeah,
Missing
yeah.
Links Golf Show.
I mean, look, let's just say she's an Olympian, which
She
is
is
more than what
more than
either
either
of
of
us can
us,
say.
more than us. And to all
Well,
of our Finnish listeners, of which there are a few, yeah, big fan.
yeah, look, and it's interesting because I've thought a little bit about the Olympics. I did when
You thought you might
uh,
try and qualify? Was that what you were
well,
driving at?
there's no, I actually was going to say that, but there was a guy who when I was playing at New South Wales Golf Club at the time of when Scotty Fisher and I were trying to play pro golf, there was a guy who actually was a caddy for one of the other guys who played pennants for New South Wales, who was in the Australian water polo team and went to multiple Olympics. And
Right.
I had a number of conversations with him, a guy by the name of Chris Wybrow. So yeah, Australian
Right.
Olympian, and he might have even been captain of the Australian water polo team.
Known as the
But yeah,
Sharks, Andy Walker, the Australian water polo team, known as the
mm,
Sharks.
yep. Well, the Stingers lost
Late,
in the final.
yep, the ladies
I
team.
watched. I actually quite enjoyed watching the water polo. It's a it's
Tough
it's
game.
it's a very tough game,
Tough game.
and to stay afloat for that long. And you're
Mm,
basically up and down and up and down and up and
mm.
down the pool and sort of, passing and, getting your upper body out of the water to try and get the power
Some
for,
bloke trying to drown you up on
yeah,
top.
like it's,
Yeah.
yeah, incredible sport. But yeah, but I had a few chats to him about what it means to be an Olympian and to play or to compete at the Olympics. And it just seemed like an incredible atmosphere to be a part of. So, there was a guy with somewhere in Eastern Europe. I forget which country it was, who I think he's like 51 or 52, and he only took up. He was a pistol shooter, and only took
Oh,
up shooting 2 or 3 years ago.
this is not the
But
legend from Turkey, is it?
yeah, that was him. Yeah, from Turkey. Yes.
Won
Yeah.
silver, didn't he? Silver,
Yeah, one silver,
I think it
one
was. Yeah.
silver. So I sort of looked at that and went, well, I'm 51, so maybe I can take up pistol shooting and in a couple of years' time I can compete at the Olympics. I mean, we'd have to pivot the podcast. Um,
We would, and I think ease up because yes, this is a podcast about middle-aged sporting glory.
yeah.
I'm not sure that the Olympics was ever in the frame, any more so than the New South Wales Senior Amateur Open. But
Well, I think the New South Wales Senior, well, certainly the New South Wales Senior Open that was in the frame in November, and this is potentially our, what we're going to talk about next week.
mm,
But yeah, I think that's a long way off at this point in time.
there's a little spoiler, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Um, but good grief, I can't even remember where we were going with that conversation. But I think,
Well, where we were going is we were talking about, Ursula that you
yes,
played
that's like
played golf
great,
with,
great effort.
and it was a extremely good effort, and I was sort of tongue in cheek,
Mm,
you know, about the performance of her being 57th, but at the end of the day, she's an Olympian, and that's a phenomenal effort in its own right to
yep,
get to an
yep,
Olympics, and
100%.
regardless on what I say about position, I'm also extremely jealous that she's actually got to go to an
Oh,
Olympics.
honestly, how good would it be? One final question that I've got for you, Andy Walker,
Mm.
is golf in the Olympics. Should there be a silver and a bronze medal,
Well, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't there be a silver and bronze medal? I mean, there's a silver and bronze medal for every other
or should
event
there be?
at the
You either win or
Olympics,
you don't.
but yeah, well, I mean, silver and bronze is still a pretty big deal. I think any Olympian in history that has won a silver or bronze, if you ask them, do you treasure this silver or bronze? I think any Olympian would go, yep, no, wouldn't give it back for the world.
Look, of course they would. I'm being somewhat facetious.
Mm.
How do you feel about the concept under consideration currently for the Masters next year to hand out a green jacket to the winner and then a silver jacket to second place and a bronze jacket to third? It's only under consideration by me. Um,
I was going to say, I haven't heard that. That just sounds like
how would you feel about that?
no, 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 no.
But
Look,
you're happy to hand out
well,
silver and bronze medals
it's
at the
the
Olympics.
Olympics, right? So it's the event. So you've got to take, just as you've got to treat each individual as an individual person, you've got to treat each event on its merits and what it stands for. And the Olympics is gold, silver, and bronze, which is why I think match play is a really good format for the Olympics, because then you've got the gold medal playoff and then you've got the bronze medal playoff. They're your last two matches. But yeah, no, it's you need to be consistent with other sports.
Surprised by that answer, I've got to admit.
Mm.
But anyway, that's fine. Andy
So
Walker, any final messages?
yeah, look, there is a couple of things that I wanted to bring up that I just wanted to hear your thoughts on.
Mm,
Um, Specific players.
mm,
One, Mito Pereira,
mm.
using the broomstick. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't believe that the broomstick should be allowed anyway.
Mm. But he's gone because he was using the claw, wasn't he? In
I think
the
he's used.
when he
I think he's used pretty much everything that there is
yeah.
going.
But
Mito.
he's gone to the broomstick. I noticed throughout the
It's
Olympics.
it's a last resort, to be perfectly honest. For people that are struggling with their putting so much that they feel there's nowhere else to go. I mean, Will Zalatoris was the same,
Mm.
and he's had to resort to the broomy to try and sort out that massive S bend in his takeaway on his
Mm.
putting stroke that he did
Yep.
have. I'm not a fan.
Mm.
I think though that it's also fair to say that with my putting record over the length of the show, that perhaps I should be using the broomstick. Maybe that's
Mm.
something to look into. I don't know,
Mm. Mm.
but no, not a fan.
Yep. Second one, Matthew Pavon doing the
Mathieu.
Pavon using the cross-handed chipping, Matt Fitzpatrick style.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Nothing screams I've got the yips quite like cross-handed chipping. Look, have you ever tried it, Andy Walker?
No, no, I haven't.
I tried it down at the practice facility, Miss Gillings
Mm,
Golf Show High Performance Centre, Central West adjunct practice facility, short game facility. Um, it is incredibly difficult. It feels very foreign. I cannot for the life of me understand how it could help.
mm.
So I think, whilst I fundamentally disagree with it and I think it looks ridiculous, I think for anyone that's doing it, best of luck to you because you're just making the game harder for yourself. And if you can still succeed whilst doing that, then I think you've done very well.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. No, I must admit because I'm very much a is in my short game right hand dominant.
Mm.
Whereas interesting in my long game I'm left hand dominant, but in my short game I'm right hand dominant, and I don't know how you you can chip cross handed and be
No,
right hand dominant. So
it just
it's just
makes no sense.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I looked at that and went, oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
I think that there's been a few little issues there with the short game.
Mm. Absolutely. No doubt
Mm.
about that.
So there you go. Yeah, cross-handed chipping and the broomy.
Broomstick putting, no,
Yeah.
unacceptable on both fronts. Um, anyway, so I'm okay giving a straight answer. None of this fence sitting that you've been carrying on with all episode, Andy Walker.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a bit of fence sitting.
Mm. Only if you want to get splinters. Anyway,
That's true.
um, anything else before we wrap up for the
No, I
evening?
think that covers it pretty well. I think it was a couple of really good events with I mean we covered obviously the blokes a lot more than the girls, but I certainly enjoyed watching both, a bit of the live action with the men and then the highlights of the girls. And yeah, I think golf certainly is starting to find its place in the Olympics, and
Mm,
yeah, I hope it continues.
totally agree. I thought it was a great event. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it seemed to come across that the players were really, really enjoying it as well, and it seems to
Mm,
be meaning more to them each time that it's there. So as the history builds, I feel like only good things are coming from Olympic golf, and if it also
yeah,
means that it gets sort of a bit of airtime for people that might not otherwise watch the sport, then that can only
yeah.
be good things. Well,
Well, they actually did have. I was looking at some of the highlights and footage of the golf, and it actually had an explainer of what golf is.
oh
So I was
no,
sort of looking at going, okay. I didn't actually watch it. I might actually go back and watch it, but when on the page that they had the highlights, it had a golf explainer, which I thought was quite interesting.
get the ball in the hole, people. That's really what it's
In
about.
in as few shots as possible.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the episode. Andy Walker, unless there's any other final thoughts that you would like to share with the pilgrims.
I think there's only one thing left to do, and that
Well,
is to.
before we do
Oh,
that though,
oh,
just before,
you've you've
just
you've you've
just
you've
before,
caught me mid stride.
just before we give that final instruction, maybe just a little bit of a teaser about what's to come in the next episode because there's a few things that have been going on in the background that we have not yet shared.
Mm,
One of those, I did have a competitive round on the weekend,
mm,
albeit not an individual event. So that's all I'll say on the matter, but we're going to cover that next
mm,
episode. And
mm.
Andy Walker, you might also have a little bit of golf to talk about as well.
Yeah, well, I did not have a competition round over the
Mm,
weekend.
doesn't mean that you didn't play any golf.
That
So
is
that's
true.
exciting.
That is true. Mm.
So that's exciting. So Pilgrim, strap yourself in for that. That'll be coming at you same time, same channel. And now, Andy Walker, anything else that you feel that our pilgrims should potentially do?
Rock out, pilgrims.